Hey guys, so this is my first YouTube video, and I thought I'd start off with reacting to one of my favorite YouTubers. His video was called What I Have to Do Daily to Not Hate Myself. And he was inspired by a close friend of his. Captin Sinbad was inspired by another YouTuber in the same genre called Hastings. And so what led him up to making this video was he had left his full-time job. At that time, he was also working part-time with YouTube, and he left that job to do full-time for YouTube. And when he was working at the job, the part of him that was doing YouTube couldn't wait to do it full-time. It had the aspiration of being his own boss, how he wouldn't have to follow anyone else's orders. And for anyone else who has made the transition or wants to make the transition, you know how it feels. I certainly do myself. That's why I'm here. And so, well, he had that aspiration. There's the reality that sets in once you actually get into that space. And so once he became a full-time YouTuber, he noticed a couple of things because he had a new perspective. One was when he was working at his full-time job and his boss would give him something to do or just his general job duties to do, when he finished those in the day, he would feel like his day was meaningful. Like he had set out to do something today and it was worth it. It wasn't just aimless, a waste. And I've been there, I've done that. I'm sure most of us have at some point. And so when he started to do YouTube full time, it started to set in where it was all on him. And well, it's obvious. It's one thing to intellectually know that, and it's another thing to actually feel it. And so for him, he could feel that when he made his own schedule, when he took the actions, if they weren't meaningful enough, if they didn't progress in the way he wanted, then he felt like the day wasn't worth it. And he would hate himself. And that's something that he couldn't blame on anyone else. When he was at a full-time job, he could potentially blame his boss or coworkers, but no. By himself, actually not so much by himself, but him and his partner, it was all on them. All on him. And so he came to realize that because of him working self-employed full-time, that every day, at least with the channel, he had a certain ideal he wanted to live up to. And he's all like, since this is all on me, then if everything goes right, then I should be here. And so when he didn't meet that and he was here, it would be a big blow. Or at least you would feel it. And I felt that too. Anyone else who's had the whole day to themselves, and when they get to the end of the day and they look at their progress, the many things they want to do, and they see that they had the time, there weren't external factors getting in their way, and they didn't do it. Or whatever their reason, whatever their rationalization at the moment, they didn't do it. And so for himself, he came up with 3 strategies that would help him and potentially help others. That's why he made the video. Help himself to make the most use of his day. And so let's get into it. The first one, set yourself according to your biological prime time. Now, what does this mean? Throughout the day, whether it's the morning, afternoon, or evening, you'll notice there's certain time periods where you're feeling you have energy, and you could even say, especially when you leave that period, that you were at your top, your peak. And so this is what we call your biological prime time. And so he was noticing, if I do the tasks that I really need to do today, so I don't hate myself during that time, then the rest of the day, when he feels subpar or little to no energy, then he wouldn't feel stressed out about it. He wouldn't have to, with willpower, force himself to do it, because he already knew that for him it was 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. He knew, I will do those tasks during that time. But then he also came to the realization there's those things that are really meaningful in the day we often feel resistance to as well. And this, for anyone who's been in that position, let's just say you planned out the next day to do X task. And you do that task. Or no, you don't even get to that task. You're getting to that point, and then you're feeling the resistance. You're feeling this internal pressure, and you end up doing something else. You rationalize and stop. And so what he suggests is to do a soft task, a small task that you have little to no resistance, and that you can finish, and it'll build momentum going in. And I've done this myself. At the time, I didn't know exactly I was doing this, but I wanted to do something in the day, something I found meaningful. And so that's what I did. I did a small task, and and then whether I actually ended up doing the deeper, bigger task I sometimes did, sometimes didn't, but at least I had a better chance. And so he suggests that. And this is going with I'm sure over the years in this community, people have heard work smarter, not just harder, because hard work is only useful if it's getting you actually closer to what you want to progress towards. Otherwise, it's just hard work for the sake of hard work, which spawned the movement. Work smarter, not harder, because people would notice at a job, people would be working extra hard, 8+ hours a day, and you look at the amount of money they're making. You look at some of these people online, and the amount of hours they put in per day, per week, in comparison is just, and you're like, clearly one person's working harder, right? And so, to sum it up, that's why it's smarter to do the task that you need to do during this biological prime time. And that leads us to the second strategy, giving yourself less time to accomplish tasks. Now, you already know you have a brief window during that biological prime time. And so inherently, you already have less time to finish these tasks if you truly want to finish them and have the best chance of finishing them with quality. Now, the reason why he has this strategy is that most people, or a good amount of people, don't even realize this biological prime time. And even if you did, you wouldn't also think that you only have that time. You would think, even if I can't finish, let's say, like with him, from 11 to 3, I could just do it sometime afterwards. Well, you say that enough times, do that enough times, and you'll quickly realize that more often than not, you won't do it. You won't have the energy, you'll have excuses you'll come up with, and no one wants that. Then you just feel self-blame and hate towards yourself. And so, in his life, he noticed that one of his best videos, which only took 90 minutes to make, did better than some of the videos that took a couple months to make. And so it took him a step back, and he realized that it isn't necessarily all just the amount of time and hard work you put in, but also things that are out of your control, like the right place and the right time. If you upload a video about a certain content when the public is really focused and invested in it, then it'll make the most views. It'll have the most impact. And so, while you always want to put in as much time and effort, quality into these videos, sometimes it isn't just the amount of time. More often than not, it isn't. And so if you give yourself less time, you're actually, in a funny way, you're actually giving yourself a greater sense of urgency. Not desperation, because there's a difference. There's 3 states. There's relaxed, urgent. That means you're getting closer to the time, you know you don't have too much. And then you're closer. You're real close to that time where you can't do it anymore, and that's when you're desperate. And so the best state is to be in an urgent state. And now it's less time to finish the task, but it's not to the point where you're despairing, that you feel like you don't have time. So you want to put yourself in that ballpark range. Give yourself less time to accomplish the task. And this, after experimenting with this multiple times, you'll figure out You'll be able to gauge to the best of your abilities that day how much energy you have, difficulty of the task, and so on. So, and the third strategy is maintenance days. See, like earlier I said, he had moved from his full-time job to full-time YouTube. And when he was at his full-time job, he only had so much time to do seemingly meaningless tasks that weren't on the same level as, say, making a YouTube video. Chores, cleaning, stuff that when, excuse me, stuff when not focused on for a period of time starts to build up and gets chaotic, and eventually you can't ignore it anymore. And so, if you can, assuming you're self-employed, it would be easier. Have one full day where he suggests have a log which has a list of tasks. Boom, write them down and check them off one by one when you finish them. However, this also applies if you still have a full-time job too. Just instead of one full day, you chunk it out into smaller parts throughout the days of the week, and you'll eventually get there. So, my suggestion on top of what he's already saying is that log in which you're writing down those tasks and checking them off one by one. I would also, and this is something I've been attempting to do, is create a master log. Because if you notice there's certain tasks, certain maintenance tasks that just keep coming up every week, every month, a couple times a year, if you can keep a log of what the task is, when you did the task, and when you plan on next doing the task, say, for example, you look at your car and you vacuum it. Every once in a while you notice it gets too dirty and you vacuum it yourself. And so if you vacuum, say at the beginning of the month, you can put that on the log. 5/1, I vacuumed the car, whatever your car is. And then you can put 30 days into the future. And when it hits those 30 days, you can look at your car and you can assess the situation and be like, it isn't really that dirty yet. It isn't to the point where I want to put time into it besides this brief check. And so you do another 30 days. 60 days go by. You see it and you're like, okay, it's getting pretty chaotic. It's getting pretty dirty. I want to vacuum it up. You vacuum. You write that date. It's been 60 days. And so follow that new pattern now. 60 days later, you'll look back at the log, because you're periodically looking at the log for other things. You'll look at the log and you'll notice, oh, it's coming up. And so you check out the car and lo and behold, 60 days, you're like, yeah, it looks pretty dirty. Let's vacuum it up. And then during that time, you can, if you have a full day, you can put it in the full day. Or if you're chunking it out into multiple days, just deposit that task into one of those days. So to sum up these 3 strategies: set yourself according to your biological prime time, give yourself less time to accomplish tasks, and maintenance days. You do all 3 of these together and they'll both support and restrict each other in ways that overall your life will be better. At least since I've started incorporating this, it's helped me out more. So I'm going to put his video in the description. And if you want to watch the original, because he gives other examples that pertain to like how he looks at the world. And yeah, I hope this video has helped out someone. And thank you.